September 14th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. You can go down to the descriptions below to see where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. So everything's timestamped, so you don't have to watch the whole video. I didn't take a single trade today, and overall, I didn't see that very many setups, even though overall price action kind of fell into this big channel marked off by the red, but you don't really see it till, much later in the day. And even then, it didn't really come into play to set up for very many trades. There was only one piece of economic data that came out today, which was at 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here. It was the producer price index, and for the core month-over-month retail sales as well as unemployment claims. They all came out around 5:30, and then it looked like there was just kind of this one big leg up, kind of a sell-off, another big leg up, small sell-off, and then it just got choppy. So unfortunately, each move, although these are big swings, each side-by-side candles were kind of like very tightly printing. So it's kind of congested. So it felt dangerous to trust any real second entries. And so I ended up just not taking a single trade, and I just had to watch and kind of get a little bit better. There was a few almost trades, as I like to call them. And the pre-market lows, which is marked off here, and the pre-market high, which is marked off here, didn't look like it really came into play either. So I pretty much traded today as a bunch of trend channels, as well as a few consolidation ranges. So let me get into trades right now. So this is the pre-market. The pre-market, you actually see kind of like one leg up, pulls back, and I thought it would make a measured move. And it looked like it made a clean measured move, which is this orange line here. But this is the pre-market, so I couldn't take advantage of any of these trades here. I also saw this as potentially one big leg, which is this red line here. And I didn't draw the second red line till I got to about, actually, oh, that's strange. I didn't really draw the second red line. Let's see where it should have sat. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So it's actually one leg up, a sell-off, and a second leg up. But this red line for one leg up, I didn't really take into account until a little bit later. So on the open, there's the pre-market high, kind of sold off. There's like a first entry long, second entry long technically right here per the count, or you had a measured leg coming down here, pulls up, and another leg here. But I didn't really see a good entry. You can disregard. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this red channel right now because it didn't come into play and it's just making an already messy chart more messy. But I did see a new setup here, and I was thinking it was potentially trading in this yellow channel going up. It confirmed once, twice, three times pretty nicely. And also on the top side, once, twice, three times, four times, and a small little overshoot here. This overshoot here was making me think there might be a potential overshoot on this side. So when I saw this and it touched this bottom, I saw this as a first entry short, and I saw this as a second entry short. Now you'll notice it completed a measure move, a clean leg down, pull back, and a second clean leg down. And so it's bouncing off the bottom of this yellow channel. It's unclear on the possible price action direction. Since there's an overshoot here, I'm thinking it might try to break out and come to the other side on this move down. So it went one push up, comes back down, a second push up. So here, even though it's coming down, and I saw this as a setup like this, I was thinking maybe there is a potential short here. And it has a good signal bar and it closed below the EMA. So it just created a measure move though. So I was thinking maybe it had one push up, second push up, and maybe a resume. But I just wasn't sure. And to be honest, I wasn't quite mentally prepared to sort this out. So I didn't take a trade. Turns out it would have worked out pretty nicely. Then it bounces off. So it's confirming this bottom of this yellow channel. Drops around. And I actually see another setup. There's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. I also believe that there's a trading range right here. It's at the top of a potential trading range. So this second entry short is setting up right here. So this is the signal bar for the second entry short. The thing I didn't like about this second entry short was even though the signal bar is good, it's kind of above the EMA. And the EMA doesn't matter as much as when you're in a trading range. But to take a short, I felt like there wasn't much room before I would hit this potential support, which has proven to be pretty strong. So then I also try to reverse my thinking, well, if the next candles kind of show that it's a failed second entry short, maybe it'll move right back up to the other side. The problem with that is right now, each time it kind of pushed up, it's falling short every time. And as you look previously, every time it came to the bottom, went back to the top, two pushes, came to the bottom, went back to the top, a couple pushes, and now it seems to be struggling. So it's leaving me in a quandary of whether to go long or short. And in that case, I just said, I should just wait, even though it's the top of the range. But even then, the top of the range, I'm not too confident about yet because it hasn't enough pushes to the bottom. So looks like it, depending on how much you took, it would look like it would have, let's see, ooh, it looked like it would have been just enough for a quick, probably scalp. So then here I see a new high, first entry long, second entry long, and it's a failed second entry long. And I thought this was a pretty good signal bar. Strong bearish close. It was at the top of the range, and it's closing outside of this yellow channel. So I'm thinking this could create that little overshoot right here that would make it symmetric. And there's enough room to make it down to the bottom of this range for a quick scalp. But I wasn't sure 100% on my read, so I left it alone. I wanted this candle, this green one, ideally to be a little bit more bearish, and then this one would have confirmed the bearish move and the failed second entry long, and I would have put my trade one tick below the signal bar here, but this signal bar wasn't bearish enough. And even if I did it, and let's just say this closed red, I don't think I would have gotten a fill. It's hard to say I would have gotten a fill here. So it pushes out, and I'm thinking, okay, it kind of made a move here. Now maybe it might come back into this yellow channel, or at least make it back up to the top of this range. It's just chopping around. I notice it doesn't make it, and it kind of comes back down. You do have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. The second entry short's a terrible signal bar though, because it closed pretty high up, and there's not enough room to scalp out, so I have to leave it alone. Prices then continue, flashes through. I see the smaller green short trend channel going down. And here, I'm wondering if there's an orange channel here. So actually, I had it a little bit tighter. And then as prices printed, I dragged it down here. And I wasn't really sure where the top was. So I actually had it cutting through up here, thinking there might be kind of a spike in the channel. So I was thinking I was potentially playing with something that looked like this at the time. It doesn't look clean, but I can adjust it later. Actually, I won't adjust it. I'm just going to move forward. So it came back up. That's where I dragged the top of that. It used to be sitting down here-ish, and then I moved it all the way back up to here to make it look a little like it fit a little bit better. There's a move up, and there's a sell-off, and it looks like it's consolidating on the midline of the pre-market, which is right here. But I don't see a clean setup. Technically, you have a first entry long, and you have a second entry long here. It's a good signal bar. It could make it back up to the top, but it could be one push down or correction and then a continuation down. And where it corrects and continues down to the bottom of this orange channel, I'm not really sure. So I had to just wait. Flashes up, it gets rejected by the EMA and then continues back down as I thought it would, kind of touching to the other side. And here I did see a visual second entry long. So it's actually one leg down, pulls up, potential second leg down. It didn't make a measured move, but I saw this and I thought maybe there is a setup here because it looks like it's bouncing off the bottom of this orange channel, which actually had a little bit tighter, about right there. But I wasn't ready to take a trade because on a larger time frame, it looks like it is a break and the new low of this green channel. So it broke and it already made a new low. So it looked like it might be starting to reverse. And the only thing that was also holding me back was it's kind of a counter trend trade. But you could argue that it already made to the other side. So now it should probably start pushing to the other side here. In that case, I said I should just wait for a higher low confirmation. And you don't get a higher low till here. This higher low is pretty bad looking. It's not very safe because it also closed bearish. So I had to just leave it alone. And it looked like if I did take the higher low, I probably wouldn't have gotten filled and then the prices would have moved down here. But that's besides the point because I never took the trade anyways. So this is a new high, first entry long, pulls back. It's probably setting up for a second entry long because it is bouncing off the bottom of this orange channel again. But the signal bar is too neutral for my taste. And After the strong bullish green candle here, so it confirms the second entry long, now it feels it's too late because there's no room before you hit the EMA. You're also running into a potential resistance by the midline of this orange channel. So to take a trade here, one tick above, felt too risky. I also debated maybe if I drop my entry down here, actually after the fact, I was thinking if I drop my entry down here, you're asking again for prices to come all the way back down to pick you up and then flash all the way back up. Otherwise, you could have probably tried to enter between the top of this signal bar and the top of this trigger bar, somewhere in here. But I just didn't want to because I was afraid of the EMA but acting as a potential resistance. Turns out it would have worked out pretty nicely, and it actually moves back to the other side, which is great. And it follows price action rules, making one leg up, pull back, creating a second leg. It almost hits it until it gets to about here. Now it completes the measured move. So now I'm wondering if it's going to actually move back down, because right now it broke out of this orange range, orange channel, and it might come back down. So I was just watching carefully. It just gets choppy, and I thought, okay, maybe I actually have a spike in the channel, spike and then this green channel going up. Looks like it's obeying it pretty nicely, but there are no clean setups to take. So I'm just sitting, watching and waiting. Falls into this consolidation area, breaks out again, keeps going, and now it broke out of this green channel and made one push up, then a second push up, and it definitely met the highs. And then here I see a second entry long. So I see a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. The second entry long, it's a good signal bar. It's the first touch of the EMA after it's sitting above it for a while. So you would think naturally it might create a bounce and come back up to at least push up to the high. The thing that was giving me pause was I'm thinking this has already broken out of this green channel, made two attempts and tested the highs now. So now to ask it again to push up to test the highs feels a little risky, even though it's telling me, the EMA is holding. It's the first touch of it. It could bounce straight back up and through. And I saw that this could potentially be a failed breakout of the pre-market range. This is a pre-market high and low, but even the pre-market high and low, it's hard to say the range is, well, it didn't really matter where the lows was at this point, but the highs was here, and I was thinking this could be a failed breakout. So it had all these things going for it, except it's also, if it's a failed breakout, it could be coming back into range, but it's bouncing off the top of the outside of it. So that made me kind of wonder, and I said, I should just wait for a confirmation high or low to know that it's going to actually continue upwards. You don't get a higher low, so I had to abandon the trade, or abandon the idea. It falls into this channel coming down. Fits pretty nicely. It's too congested here, though, because you do have a bunch of second entries, but they're not necessarily high probability. So the wait, there's a breakout, it starts floating back up, and that's where I draw this yellow channel. Comes up, and here, that's where I draw this blue line. I notice there's some kind of resistance here. It's chopping around. I see a new high here, first entry long. Technically, this is your second entry long that was made, but this is a terrible looking signal bar. So it just didn't look clean, and it's running into potential resistance here. So this is what you see, and a potential resistance here. So there's two areas that gave me concern. So to take a long after this one closed, it just felt, even though it's a second entry long, it just doesn't look clean. Again, wait for a higher low, ideally to get clear of all this mess. It does get clear of all that mess, and then you have a higher low, but this higher low is terrible looking because it looks like it's coming right back now. And prices continue chopping. I see a second entry long here from the new high here, get a first entry long, pulls back. It's getting ready for a second entry long. And the second entry long, it's a good signal bar. It closed above the EMA, and it is the first break of this green channel now. But this green channel, I wasn't 100% feeling comfortable with it because it only had one touch, two touch. There's really no third touch, but it fit kind of nicely at the top, but it still just wasn't clean enough. So even though it's like breaks out, you made one attempt, and you could argue that it's about to make a second attempt to test this high. It's coming from kind of an overshoot. And if it didn't count this as an overshoot, it just didn't feel like a very clean setup, at least the way I drew it, the way I was trading it. So I just decided I didn't like that signal bar. It's also inside bar of this red one. So all these things are just kind of floating in my head. I'm thinking, you know what, just leave it alone. Looks like it would have worked, but of course you don't know that at the time. It does test and make a new high here. Drops around. This is getting very ugly. Look at these side-by-side candles. It falls into what I think is a trading range, but there's no clean setup because everything's just looking wicky and very tight channel. Because this is only about 3.5 points. So you have to buy at the very bottom to give yourself comfortable enough comfort and room to make it to the other side for at least your 1 point scalp. Pushing for 2 points on a 3 point range feels very ambitious. Then prices chop through. It looks like it's out of this range now. It's coming back down. It's dancing at the top of what I thought was some kind of resistance before, and now it looks like it's some kind of support. But this is just very congested, very ugly trading, very confusing. Like nobody's in charge here, not the buyers and not the sellers. So that's just a good signal to just stay out of it. I did see this. I marked it, but there's no trade here. I just like to point it out for myself. This is a new low, get a first entry short, and then technically on this candle you made a second entry short, but it's hidden. So it's actually first entry short, opens here, pulls up, comes down, and then closes right here. So it made a second entry short, but it's hidden. There's no setup. I just like pointing these out for myself, just to keep my eyes tuned in on potential smaller or larger time frames that might be occurring that might be carrying setups. Unfortunately, there's nothing here for me to take. But then here you do have a new low first entry short and a very clean second entry short, plus a potential higher low setup. The thing that I didn't like about this is there's resistance here. So we see where my cursor is. It's running right up to this potential resistance. So it could create a triple top and then push back down. Knowing I'm going to buy into that without much room to scalp out, it's only about 0.5 point, I decided this isn't worth a trade. Turns out it would have worked out really nicely. And then I draw this green channel coming up. It kind of oscillates and then it kind of comes back down. It's getting kind of late in the day now, and I haven't taken a single trade. So I was kind of at this point writing things off, thinking, there's probably no trades today, and not to try to force one or hunt too hard for one when one isn't there. So I did see this as a new low, first entry short, second entry short. These aren't very good signal bars, but then it closed here. So I'm thinking it made one push up, then a second push up. Maybe it's going to come back down and test this low. And it actually doesn't. I saw that, but I also wasn't that keen on it because it was very late in the day. And then here again, it's kind of riding into the last 10 minutes where things get super volatile, pops around, and it goes into the close. So overall, it had these big swings, but unfortunately, each candle that printed subsequently, one after the other, they were just very tight. So it's kind of like, even though when you step out, you look like, oh, well, why didn't you just buy down here and sell up here? Well, in the moment, it's hard to really feel that those are high probability trades to take a confident entry on. So I didn't see too many setups today, even though it looks like it was kind of swipping around. And unfortunately, well, let me take that back. Fortunately, I didn't take any losing trades, even though I didn't take any winning trades. So hopefully that was helpful.